Yes! Woo! Get into it! Get into it! Yes! I have way too much fun. I have way too much fun in life. I have way too much fun in my job. Hi! We're back, lovelies. We are back. Ooh, that reminds me of my favorite radio station. For those who grew up... Oh! Lord. Hold on, y'all. I'm in violation. Hold on. I'm so sorry. Hopefully you can hear me now. Hopefully y'all are able to hear me in the beginning. But hi! Welcome to Storytime with Chris After Dark. It's Friday night. You know what time it is. We are going to continue our reading of Gregory Maguire's masterpiece, Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West. This is part 3. There's going to be several parts to this. And as I've written in the description, as well as now, if you are not 18 years and older, you do not need to be watching this video, kids. As much as I know Storytime being known for the children and the families, this particularly is for the adults. So if you are not of that age group, please politely exit this video and go peruse hundreds of other videos that are more appropriate for your age group. Thank you. As I always say, you don't have to watch these videos when they go live. You're more than welcome to watch them in your downtime, nap time, max, relax, and chillaxing time, in between time, eating time, scheme time, study time, break time, CP time, anytime. But you want to hear a highly animated voice bring you wonderful stories of magic, fantasy, science fiction, adventure, and many, many more in between. Hi. Ooh, I'm positively glowing. I love it. The music, I'm going to switch up because it's not giving what I'm going for. And that's okay. That's why we have options. Shout out to Mr. Ambiance. If you have not already done so, please check them out on YouTube. Mr. Ambiance. Like, share, and subscribe to their channel. Hit that bell notification so you don't miss a video. No, I'm not being paid to say this. I just think it's courtesy that if you're going to use the magic of somebody else's talents within YouTube, you should always be supportive of your fellow YouTubers. And so that's why I do it. And also one more thing. In March of this year, it'll be 5 years of Storytime with Chris. And I'm super duper excited. I have a couple of cool things planned. But yeah, 5 years. Life tends to move real swiftly when you're having fun. And I've loved this journey. I love each and every moment. I got my tea, and yes, this music is giving. Yeah, so technically this is lemon ginger, turmeric, and Earl Grey mixed. Oh, it's a little too hot at the moment. It's my own fault for not blowing on it. Hold on one moment, please. Making sure we're not gonna be interrupted. All right, we're here. Okay, enough of my blather. Let's go ahead and get started with Storytime with Chris After Dark. As I said, if you're not 18 and older, do not be on this video. This is for the adults only. And last time we were here, we got introduced to a new character who's going to be very important for the future of this story. Elphaba's mom, Melina, has tried her best to be a bit more maternal and motherly to Elphaba, in the most surface level, barest version of that. It's very evident that she does not care for her child in the most positive way, and then all of a sudden, a drifter, a quadling, named Turtleheart, who's a glass blower, happens upon their farm and ends up sleeping with Melina prior to Frex coming back with Nanny to return her back to the house to be of more assistance in raising Elphaba. And so lots of secrets, lots of family secrets, lots of torturous secrets, so to speak. So let's go ahead and continue. That's an excellent stopping point, actually. Geographies of the seen and the unseen. All the way from Stone Spar End, where Frex met her coach, Nanny complained, "Lumbago, weak kidneys, fallen arches, aching gums, sore haunches, Frex wanted to say, "And how about your swollen ego?" Though he had been out of circulation for a while, he knew such a remark would be rude. Nanny flounced and petted herself, clinging determinedly to her seat until they arrived at the lodge near Rush Margins. Melina greeted Frex with affecting shyness. "My breastplate, my backbone," she murmured. She was slendered after her hard winter. Her cheekbones were more prominent. Her skin looked scoured as if by an artist's scratch brush. But she'd always had the look of an etching in the flesh. She was usually bold with her kisses, and he found her reticence alarming until he realized there was a stranger in the shadows. Then after introductions, Nanny and Melina fussed to get a meal on the table, and Frex put out some oats for the sorry nag who had to pull the carriage. When this was done, he went to sit in the spring evening light and to meet his daughter again. Elphaba was curious around him. He found in his patch a trinket he'd whittled for her, a little sparrow with a cunning beak and upraised wings. "Look, Fabula," he whispered. Melina hated the derivatives, so he used it. It was his and Elphaba's private bond, the father-daughter pact against the world. "Look what I found in the forest, a little maplewood bird." The child took the thing in her hands. She touched it softly and put its head in her mouth. Frex steeled himself to hear the inevitable splintering and to hold back his sigh of disappointment. But Elphaba did not bite. She sucked the head and looked at it again. Wet, it had greater life. "You like it?" Frex said. She nodded and began to feel its wings. Now that she was distracted, Frex could draw her between his knees. He nuzzled his crinkly bearded chin into her hair. She smelled like soap and wood smoke and the char on toast. A good healthy smell, and he closed his eyes. It was good to be home. He had spent the winter in an abandoned shepherd's hut on the windward slope of Griffin's Head, praying and fasting, moving deeper inside it and further outside himself. And why not? At home, he had felt the scorn of the people, of the whole claustrophobic valley of Illswater. They had connected the time dragon's slanderous story of a corrupt minister with the arrival of a deformed child. They had drawn their own conclusions. They avoided his chapel services, so a sort of hermit's life, at least in small intervals, had seemed both penance and preparation for something else. Something next? But what? He knew this life wasn't what Melina had originally expected, marrying him. With his bloodlines, Frex had looked primed for an elevation to proctor or even eventually bishop. But he had imagined the happiness Melina would have as a society dame, presiding over feast day dinners and charity balls and Episcopal teas. Instead, he could see her in the firelight, grating at last a limp winter carrot into a pan of fish. Here she wasted away, a partner in a difficult marriage on a cold, shadowy lakeshore. Frex had a notion that she wasn't sorry to see him go off from time to time, so that she could be glad to see him come back. As he ruminated, his beard tickled Elphaba's neck as she snapped the wings off her wooden sparrow. She sulked on it like a whistle. Twisting away from him, she ran to a glass lens hanging from the projecting eave and swatted at it. "Don't! You'll break that!" said her father. "She cannot break that." The traveler, the quadling, came from the sink where he had been washing up. "She has just turned her toy into a cripple," Frex said, pointing at the ruined birdling. "She is herself pleased at the half things." Turtleheart said, "I think the little girl to play with the broken pieces better." Frex didn't quite get it, but nodded. He knew that months away from the human voice made him clumsy at first. The boy from the inn who had climbed Griffin's Head to deliver Nanny's request to be picked up at Stone Spar End had obviously thought Frex a wild man, grunting and unkempt. Frex had had to quote a little of the Oziad to indicate some sort of humanity. Land of green abandoned, land of endless sleep. It was all that would come to him. "Why can't she break it?" asked Frex. "Because I did not make it to be broken," answered Turtleheart, but he smiled at Frex, not aggressively, and Elphaba wandered around with the shiny glass as if it were a toy, catching shadows, reflections, lights on its imperfect surface, almost as if she were playing. "Where are you going?" asked Frex, just as Turtleheart was saying, "Where are you from?" "I'm a Munchkinlander," said Frex. "I to think all Munchkins to be shorter than I or you." "The peasants, the farmers, yes," Frex said, "but anyone with bloodlines worth tracing married into height somewhere along the way. And you're from Quadling country?" "Yes," said the Quadling. His reddish hair had been washed and was drying into an airy nimbus. Frex was glad to see Melina so generous as to offer a passer-by water to bathe in. Perhaps she was adjusting to country life after all. Because, mercy, a quadling ranked about as low on the social ladder as it was possible to get and still be human.
But I to understand, said the quadling, Ovals is a small world. Until I to leave, I am not to know of hills, one beyond the other, and from the spiny backbones, a world so wide around, the blurry far away, to hurt my eyes. For I cannot to make it seen. Please, sir, to describe the world you know.
Frex picked up a stick. In the soil, he drew an egg on its side.
What they taught me in lessons, he said, inside the circle is Oz. Make an X, he did so through the oval, and roughly speaking, you have a pie in 4 sections. The top is Gilligan, full of cities and universities and theaters, civilized life, they say, and industry. He moved clockwise. East is Munchkinland, where we are now. Farmland, the breadbasket of Oz, except down in the mountainous south. These strokes in the districts of Wend Hardings are the hills you're climbing. He bumped and squiggled. Directly south of the center of Oz is Quadling Country. Badlands, I'm told. Marshy, useless, infested with bugs and feverish airs.
Turtleheart looked puzzled at this, but nodded.
Then west, what they call Winky Country. Don't know much about except it's dry and unpopulated. And around,
said Turtleheart.
Sandstone deserts north and west, Fleckstone desert east and south. They used to say the desert sands were deadly poison. That's just standard propaganda. Keeps invaders from Eve and Quacks from trying to get in. Munchkinland is rich and desirable farming territory, and Gilligan's not bad either. In the Gillicus up here, he scratched lines in the northeast. On the border between Gilligan and Munchkinland are the emerald mines and the famous Gillicus canals. Canals. I gather there's a dispute whether the Glickus is a Munchkinlander or Gilliganese. I gather there's a dispute, but I have no opinion on that. I'm so sorry. Turtleheart moved his hands over the drawing in the dirt, flexing his palms as if he were reading the map from above. But where? He said. What is here?
Frex wondered if he meant the air above Oz. The realm of the unnamed god, he said. The other land?
Are you a unionist? Turtleheart is glassblower,
said Turtleheart. I mean, religiously. Turtleheart bowed his head and didn't meet Frex's eye.
Turtleheart is not to know what name to call this.
I don't know about quadlings, said Frex, warming to a possible convert, but Gilliganese and Munchkinlanders are largely unionists. Since Lurlinist paganism went out, for centuries they've been unionist shrines and chapels all over Oz. Are there none in Quadling Country?
Turtleheart does not recognize what is this,
he said. And now respectable unionists are going in droves over to the pleasure fete, said Frex, snorting. Or even TikTokism, which hardly even qualifies as a religion. Yes, that is a term in this book. This book was made in 1995, so before TikTok was even a thing. There's a character from the Oz original books called TikTok. We'll talk about it later. To the ignorant, everything is spectacle these days. The ancient unionist monks and monks knew their place in the universe, acknowledging the life source too sublime to be named, and now we sniff up the skirts of every musty magician who comes along. Hedonists, anarchists, slufficists. Individual freedom and amusement is all, as if sorcery had any moral component. Charms, alley magic, industrial strength, sound and light displays, fake shape changers, charlatans, nabobs of necromancy, chemical and herbal wisdoms, humbug hedonists, selling their bog recipes and crone aphorisms and schoolboy spells, makes me sick. Turtleheart said,
Shall Turtleheart to bring you water? Shall Turtleheart to lie you down?
He put fingers soft as calf skin on the side of Frex's neck. Frex shivered and realized he had been shouting. Natty and Melina were standing in the doorway with a pan of fish, silent. And it's a figure of speech. I'm not sick, he said. But he was touched at the concern the foreigner had shown. I think we'll eat. And they did. Elphaba ignored her food except to prod the eyes out of the baked fish and tried to fit them onto her wingless bird. Natty grumbled good-naturedly about the wind of the lake, her chills, her backbone, her digestion. Her gas was apparent from more than a few feet away, and Frex moved as discreetly as possible to be upwind. He found himself sitting next to the quadling on the bench.
So is all that clear to you? Frex pointed a fork at the map of Oz. Is Emerald City to be where? Said the quadling fishbones poking out from between his lips. Dead center, Frex said. And there is Ozma, said Turtleheart. Ozma, the ordained Queen of Oz, or so they say, Frex said, though the unnamed god must be ruler of all in our hearts. How can unnamed creature to rule? Began Turtleheart. No theology at dinner, sang out Melina. That's a house rule dating from the start of our marriage, Turtleheart, and we obey it. Besides, I still harbor a devotion to Lurleen. Nanny made a face in Frex's direction. Old folks like me are allowed to. Do you know about Lurleen, stranger? Turtleheart shook his head. If we have no theology, then we surely have no errant pagan nonsense, began Frex, but Nanny, being a guest and invoking a touch of deafness when it suited her, plowed on. Lurleen is the fairy queen who flew over the sandy wastes and spotted the green and lovely land of Oz below. She left her daughter Ozma to rule the country in her absence, as she promised to return to Oz in its darkest hour. Ha! Said Frex. No ha's at me, Nanny sniffed. I'm as entitled to my beliefs as you are, Frexbar the Godly. At least they don't get me into trouble as yours do. Nanny, you govern your temper, said Melina, enjoying this. It's rubbish, said Frex. Ozma rules in the Emerald City, and anyone who's seen her or paintings of her know that she's from Gilliganese stock. She's got the same broad band of forehead, the slightly gapped front teeth, the frenzy of curly blonde hair, the quick shifts of mood, and usually into anger. All characteristics of Gilliganese peoples. You've seen her, Melina. Tell him. Oh, she is elegant in every way, Melina admitted. The daughter of a fairy queen? Said Turtleheart. More nonsense! Not nonsense! Snapped Nanny. They think she bears herself again and again and again like a phoenix, she said Frix. Ha! And double ha! They've been 300 years of very different Ozmas. Ozma the Mendacious was a dedicated Mont who lowered rulings in a bucket down from the topmost chamber in a cloister tower. She was as mad as a bung beetle. Ozma the Warrior conquered the Gillicus, at least for a time, and commandeered the emeralds with which to decorate the Emerald City. Ozma the Librarian did nothing but read genealogies for her whole life long. Then there was Ozma the Scarcely Beloved, who kept pet ermines. She overtaxed the farmers to begin the road system of yellow brick that they're still struggling to compete. And much luck to them, I say. Who is Ozma now? Asked Turtleheart. Actually, said Melina, I had the pleasure to meet the last Ozma at a social season in the Emerald City. My grandfather, the eminent Throp, had a townhouse. The winter I was 15, I was brought into society there. She was Ozma the Bilious, because of a bad stomach. She was the size of a lake narwhal, but she dressed beautifully. I saw her with her husband, Pastorius, at the Oz Festival of Song and Sentiment. She is no longer the queen? Asked Turtleheart, confused. She died in an unfortunate accident involving some rat poison. Died, said Nanny, or her spirit moved next to her child, Ozma Tipitarius? The current Ozma is just about the age of Elphaba, said Melina, so her father, Pastorius, is the Ozma regent. The good man will rule until Ozma Tipitarius is old enough to take the throne. Turtleheart shook his head. Frex was annoyed because they had spent so much time talking about the worldly ruler and ignored the eternal realm, and Nanny lapsed into a bout of indigestion for which they all were very sorry, olfactorily speaking. Anyway, even being irritated, Frex was glad to be home because of the beauty of Melina. She was almost glowing tonight as the sun left the sky because of the surprise of Turtleheart smiling and unself-conscious next to him. Maybe because of Turtleheart's religious emptiness, which Frex found challenging and appealing, almost tempting. Then there's the dragon beneath Oz in a hidden cave, Nanny was saying to Turtleheart. The dragon who has dreamt the world and who will burn it in flames when he wakes. Shut up, that superstitious codswallop, shouted Frex. Elphaba, on all fours, advanced on the uneven planks of the flooring. She bared her teeth as if she knew what a dragon was, as if she were pretending. and roared. Her green skin made her more persuasive as she were a dragon child. She roared again. "Oh, sweetheart, don't," said Frex. And she peed on the floor and sniffed her urine with satisfaction and disgust. Child's play. One afternoon toward the end of summer, Nanny said, "There's a beast abroad. I've seen it at dusk several times, lurking about in the ferns. What sort of creatures are native to these hills anyway?" "You don't find anything larger than a gopher," said Melina. They were at the side of the brook working at laundry. The small spring wetness had long since ceased, and the drought had clamped its hand down again. The stream was only a thin trickle. Elphaba, who would not come near the water, was stripping a wild pear tree of its stunted crop. She clung to the trunk with her hands and outturned feet, and threw her head around, catching the sour fruit with her teeth, then spitting seeds and stem on the ground.
"This is larger than a gopher," said Natty. "Trust me, have you bears?" "There's a rumor. Oh, it could have been a bear cub, though it moved mighty fast."
"No bears. There's a rumor of rock tigers on the fell top, but they tell me not a single one has been sighted in ages. And rock tigers are notoriously skittish and shy. They don't come near human dwellings."
"A wolf, then. Are there wolves?"
Natty let the sheet droop in the water.
"It could have been a wolf."
"Natty, you think you're in the desert. When Harding's is desolate, I agree, but it's a tame bareness for all that. You're alarming me with your wolf and tiger talk." Elphaba, who would not speak, made a low growl in the pocket of her throat.
"I don't like it," said Natty. "Let's finish up and dry these things back at the house. Enough is enough. Besides, I have other things I want to say to you. Let's give the child to Turtleheart and let's go off somewhere." She shuddered. "Somewhere safe."
"What you have to say, you can say within earshot of Elphaba," said Melina. "You know she doesn't understand a word."
"You confuse not speaking with not listening," said Nanny. "I think she understands plenty."
"Look, she's smearing fruit on her neck like a cologne."
"Like a war paint, you mean?"
"Oh, dour Nanny, stop being such a goose, and scrub those sheets harder. They're filthy."
"I need hardly ask whose sweat and leakage this is."
"Oh, you. No, you needn't ask, but don't start moralizing at me."
"But you know Frex is bound to notice sooner or later. These energetic afternoon naps you take, well, you always had an eye for the fellow with a decent helping of sausage and hard-boiled eggs."
"Nanny, come, this is none of your affair."
"More's the pity," said Nanny, sighing. "Isn't aging a cruel hoax? I trade my hard-won pearls of wisdom for a good romp with Uncle Flagpole any day."
Melina flipped a handful of water in Natty's face to shut her up. The old woman blinked as she said,
"Well, it's your garden. Plant there where you choose and reap what you may. What I want to talk about is the child anyway."
The girl was now squatting behind the pear tree. Eyes narrowed at something in the distance. She looked, thought Melina, like a sphinx, like a stone beast. A fly even landed on her face and walked across the bridge of her nose, and the child didn't flinch or squirm. Then suddenly she leaped and pounced, a naked green kitten after an invisible butterfly. "What about her?"
"Melina, she needs to get used to other children. She'll start talking a little bit if she sees that other chicks are talking."
"Talking among children is an overrated concept."
"Don't be glib. You know she needs to get used to people other than us. She's not going to have an easy time of it anyhow unless she sheds her greedy skin as she grows up. She needs the habits of conversation. Look, I give her chores to do. I warble nursery rhymes at her. Melina, why doesn't she respond like other children?"
"She's boring. Some children are.
She ought to have other pups to play with. They would infect her with a sense of fun."
"Frankly, Frex doesn't expect a child of his to be interested in fun," said Melina. "Fun is counted for overmuch in this world, Natty. I agree with him on that."
So your dragon snaking with Turtle Heart is what? Devotional exercise?
I said don't be catty, please. Melina focused on the toweling, beating it with annoyance. Natty would go on about this. She was up to something, and Natty had hit the nail on the head. There crept Turtleheart into the cool shadows of the cottage when Melina was tired from a morning's work in the vegetable garden. He covered her with a sense of holiness, and it was more than her undergarments that would drop away from her when they tumbled panting onto the bedclothes. She would lose her sense of shame. She knew this did not follow conventional reason. Nevertheless, should a tribunal of unionist ministers call her to court for adultery, she would tell the truth. Somehow, Turtleheart had saved her and restored her sense of grace, of hope in the world. Her belief in the goodness of things had been dashed into pieces when little green Elphaba crawled into being. The child was extravagant punishment for a sin so minor she didn't even know she had committed it. It was not the sex that had saved her, though the sex was mighty vigorous, even frightening. It was that Turtleheart didn't blush when Freck showed up, that he didn't shrink from beastly little Elphaba. He set up shop in the side yard, blowing glass and grinding it as if life had brought him here just to redeem Melina. Wherever else he might have been heading had been forgotten. Very well, you interfering cow, said Melina. For the sake of argument, what do you propose?
We must take Elfie to Rush Margins and find some small children for her to play with.
Melina sat back on her haunches. But you have to be jesting, she cried. Slow and deliberate as Elphaba is, at least she's unharmed here. I may not be able to summon much maternal warmth, but I feed her, Nanny, and I keep her from hurting herself. How cruel to inflict the outside world on her. A green child will be an open invitation for scorn and abuse, and children are wickeder than adults. They have no sense of restraint. We might as well throw her in the lake she's so terrified of.
No, 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 said Nanny, putting her fat hands on her own knees. Her voice was thick with determination. Now I'm going to argue with you about this, Melina, until you give in. Time and its wisdom will bring you around to my way of thinking. Listen to me. You are only a pampered little rich girl who flitted about from music lessons to dance lessons with neighborhood children equally rich and stupid as you. Of course there's cruelty, but Elphaba must learn who she is, and she might face down cruelty early, and there'll be less of it than you expect.
Don't play Nanny Goddess with me. I won't have it.
Nanny is not giving up, said Nanny just as fiercely. I have a long-range view for your happiness as well as hers, and believe me, if you don't give her the weapons and armor with which she can defend herself against scorn, she'll make your life miserable as hers will be miserable.
And the weapons and armor she'll learn from the dirty urchins of Rush Margins?
Laughter, fun, teasing, smiling.
Oh, please.
I'm not above blackmailing you about this, Melina, said Nanny. I can wander into Rush Margins this afternoon and find where Frex is trying to hold his revival meeting and whisper a few words to him. While Frex is busy cranking up the religious ardor of Rush Margins sluggards, would he be interested in knowing what his wife is up to with Turtleheart?
You're a miserable old fiend. You are a foul, unethical bully, cried Melina. Nanny grinned with pride.
No later than tomorrow, she said. We'll go in tomorrow and get her life started.
In the morning, a stiff, unforgiving wind galloped from the heights. It picked up old leaves and the remains of failed crops and kitchen gardens. Nanny pulled a shawl across her rounded shoulders and tugged a bonnet over her brow. Her eyes were full of marginal beasts. She kept turning to see a slinting cat thing or a vixen dissolve into clots of skeleton leaves and debris. Nanny found a blackthorn staff as if to aid her over stones and ruts, but she hoped to be ready to wield it against some hungry beast.
The land is dry and cold, she observed almost to herself, and so little rain. Of course the big beast will be driven from the hills. Let's walk together, no running ahead, little green.
They made their way in silence. Nanny fearful, Melina angry at having to miss her afternoon dalliance, and Elphaba like a wind-up toy, one foot sewed solidly in front of the other. The margins of the lake had receded, and some of the crude docks were now walkways over pebble and dry green rot, with the water pulled back beyond their reach. Gwinnett was a dark stone cottage with a roof of moldering thatch. Because of a bad hip, Gwinnett was no good at hauling the fish nets or at kneeling over the wasting vegetable gardens. She had a mess of small children in various stages of undress, squalling and skulking and trotting around the dirty yard in a little pack. She looked up as the minister's family approached.
Good day, and you must be Gwinnett,
said Nanny brightly. She was pleased to open the gate and be safely inside the garden, even of this hovel.
Brother Frexbar told us we would find you here.
Sweet Lurleen, what they say is true, said Gwinnett, making a holy sign against Elphaba. I thought it vicious lies, and here she is. The children had slowed to a walk. They were boys and girls, brown-faced and white, all of them filthy, all of them keen on something new. Though they kept walking, playing some game of endurance or make-believe, their eyes never left Elphaba.
You know this is Melina, of course you do, and I am their nanny, said Nanny. We're pleased to meet you, Gwinnett.
She slid a glance to Melina and bit her upper lip and nodded. Very pleased, I'm sure, said Melina stonily.
And we need some advice, for you come well recommended, said Nanny. The little girl has problems, and the best of her thinking just doesn't seem to bring forth any good ideas.
Gwinnett leaned forward suspiciously.
The child is green, whispered Nanny confidently. You may not have noticed being attracted by her charm and warmth. Of course you know the good people of Rush Margins would let a little thing like that bother them. But because she is green, she is shy. Look at her, little frightened spring turtle. We need to draw her out, make her happy, and we don't know how.
She's great, all right, said Gwinnett. No wonder unless Brother Frexbar retired from his preaching for so long. She threw back her head and laughed raucously unkindly. And he's only now had the nerve to take it up again. Well, that's balls if I ever heard it. Brother Frexbar, interrupted Melina coldly, reminds us of the scriptures. No one knows the color of a soul. Gwinnett, he suggested I remind you of that very text. Did he now? Mumbled Gwinnett, chastised. Well then, what do you want with me?
Let her play, let her learn, let her come here and be minded by you. You know more than we do, said Nanny.
The cunning little cow, thought Melina. She's tried that rarest of strategies, telling the truth and making it sound plausible. They sat down. I don't know if they take to her, said Gwinnett, holding out a while. And you know my hip doesn't let me hop up and stop them when they get going.
Let's see, and of course there'd be some payments, some cash. Melina fully agrees, said Nanny. The barren vegetable plot has caught her attention. This was poverty.
Nanny gave Elphaba a push.
Well, go on in, child, and see what's what.
The girl didn't budge, didn't blink. The children came near to her. There were 5 boys and 2 girls. One ugly pug, said one of the older boys. He touched Elphaba on the shoulder. Played nicely now, said Melina, about to leap up, but Nanny kept her hand out to say, stay down. Tag! Let's tag, said the boy. Who's the green fly? Not it! Not it! Not it! The other children shrieked and rushed to brush Elphaba with their hands, and then raced away. She stood for a minute, unsure, her own hands down and clenched, and then she ran a few steps and stopped.
That's the way. Helpful exercise,
said Natty, nodding.
Gwinnett, you're a genius.
I know my chicks, said Gwinnett. Don't say I don't. Herd-like, the children rushed in again, tapping and darting away, but the girl would not chase them, so they neared her once more. Is it true you got a quaddling muck frog staying with you too? Said Gwinnett. Is it true that he only eats grass and dung? I beg your pardon, cried Melina. That's what they say. Is it true? Said Gwinnett. He's a fine man, but is he a quadling? Well, yes. Don't bring him around here then. They spread the plague, said Gwinnett. They spread no such thing, snapped Melina.
No throwing, Elfie dear,
called Nanny. I'm only saying what I hear. They say at night that quadlings fall asleep and their souls climb out through their mouths and go abroad. Stupid people say a lot of stupid things. Melina was curt and too loud. I've never seen his soul climb out of his mouth while he was sleeping, and I've had plenty of opportunity.
Darling, no rocks, shrilled Nanny. None of the other children have rocks.
Now they do, observed Gwinnett. He's the most sensitive person I've ever met, said Melina. Sensitive isn't much use to a fishwife, said Gwinnett. How about to a minister and a minister's wife?
Now there's blood. How vexing, said Nanny. Children, let Elfie up so I can wipe that cut. And I didn't bring a rag. Gwinnett?
Bleeding is good for them. Makes them less hungry, said Gwinnett. I rate sensitive a good sight higher than stupid, said Melina. No biting, said Gwinnett to one of the little boys, and then seeing Elphaba open her mouth to retaliate, raised herself to her feet, bad hip or no, and screamed, No biting, for the love of mercy!
Are children divine?
said Nanny. And that is where we will end for tonight. So let me break down a couple of inspirations for my voices for these characters. Have I listened to the audiobook years ago? But more so with Nanny, if anybody remembers Carol Channing, who is an amazing actress, an amazing Broadway actress, an amazing movie star, and just had such a distinctive voice. It's kind of the reason why I love her, because I have a very natural nasally quality to my voice. So I have a deviated septum. I can't breathe out of my nose properly, as most people do. When I was a child, my adenoids and tonsils were removed, and they were so swollen and big that I couldn't breathe properly when I would sleep. I would pass out taking a nap because I wasn't getting enough air. But I later, at a point in time, I think when I was 5 or 6, had them removed. And unfortunately, I still have issues with breathing in and out of my nose, and take Zyrtec and nasal inhalers and whatnot to help with that process. And elderberry definitely helps to keeping my passages, clean, building my immune system, making sure I don't get caught up with mucus and other things that could cause issue. So I tend to gravitate to different actors or characters from other things that I've seen or listened to, and I kind of impute like, okay, what would Frexbar sound like? He's very self-righteous. He's very above it all. He has to be a man of God, the unnamed God.
And then with Nanny, she's very sly. She's very older, and she has a slight way about herself.
And I love that southern twang and that scratchiness to her voice, because it gives a sense of age. And then with Melina, she's rich. She's, well, I'm above it all. And it reminds me kind of like a mixture of Cruella de Vil meets... Honestly, Cruella de Vil meets the main villain, or I should say lead, from Devil Wears Prada. And other characters we will meet. I will give different inflections and sound to, but we will get there when we get there. Thank you so much for those who are watching. As always, you don't have to watch these videos when they go live. You can watch them in your downtime, nap time, max, relax, and chillax time, in between time, mean time, scheme time, study time, break time, CP time, anytime that you want to hear a highly animated voice bring you wonderful stories of magic, fantasy, science fiction, adventure, and many, many more in between. I love you all. Bye-bye.
Mr. Mo